Hi everybody at Macleay, it's Amy here. Julian has asked a number of us to put together a bit of a structure outline of one of our classes. So I am recording this, fingers crossed that it all goes to plan. Don't know where I'm supposed to be looking, but we'll see how we go. So this is an outline of one of the classes that I take for digital business communications. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. And it's obviously open for discussion and input, and maybe you can suggest how this class could be made even better, maybe, or get the students to engage more. So what we're going to be having a look at is this particular outline. So this class and activity was to introduce students to business writing styles that can be applied to a digital communication platform for internal and external stakeholders. So I was looking at the e-newsletter here, so getting the students to understand how to develop an e-newsletter, but also to make sure that their business writing was sort of, obviously up to scratch. So I started the lesson by introducing writing strategy, and obviously this was supported by a Lynda tutorial. Here, though, we first discussed how we can analyse the reader, so our target audience, who they are, how they might react to our news depending on what our message is, what are some of the responses that they might have, what the purpose of our message is. So it could be that it is to inform them or to persuade them to do something or to entertain them in some way, and hence then we can discuss maybe what our audience may do in relation to receiving it. I then introduced what's called sort of direct and indirect writing strategies, and this sort of style of business writing, as many of you would know, is developed or helped to present information which may be routine for a business, maybe some good news that a business wants to share with their stakeholders, maybe there's some bad news that they want to share with their audiences or customers, and potentially there's also an opportunity to maybe gain people's support. So the direct or indirect writing style will depend on the type of news that the business wants to share with their stakeholders, and also that's going to depend on whether they're internal stakeholders or external. So then I asked the class to consider the types of messages that a business may communicate. So, what type of bad news could a business need to communicate to their customers? Maybe there's some good news that they want to share with their internal stakeholders, such as staff members. Maybe there's just something routine that they need to share, such as maybe some changes that were sort of going on with opening hours or deliveries or meeting rooms, and also potentially some persuasive communication. So it could be to elicit sales or attendance at something. So then the students responded by sharing maybe some ideas in relation to that, and then we had a look at the Lynda tutorial that more or less confirmed what direct and indirect writing was all about, and some of the business examples that businesses could share. So as you can see, there's just a little excerpt from the Lynda tutorial that we then watched after a number of points. Then the first exercise that we got the students to do was to write 4 pieces of news based on, routine news, good news, bad news, and a piece of persuasive news. And they were to use the indirect or direct writing strategy based on the type of news that they wanted to deliver. And this was based on the business that they chose at the beginning of semester. So some students have a what are some of the businesses they have? They have like a sporting business. Some of them have a can't remember, but they have lots of different businesses that they've come up. A bit similar to sort of entrepreneurship, no doubt. We do the same in business communications, because they are developing a digital portfolio, and the content that they're developing is around their business theme. So some have restaurants, some have, you know, makeup, some have sports, some have fitness businesses, some have care services. So it does depend on what they've chosen, and then they develop some writing in relation to that. Then we stop that and move through some further content. We talk about different communication channels, such as e-newsletters and video and social media, of course, different ways of communicating to our stakeholders. And then we start looking more specifically at the e-newsletter, because that's what we want them to focus on for this lesson. And we introduce all the different types of e-marketing platforms to work with, and there's a few other references that we provide and discuss some of the marketing platforms out there. And we focus on MailChimp as one of those marketing platforms, and we have a look at then the design, the purpose of e-newsletter communication. So it may be that we want to showcase something from the business, we want to share some big news or share a story, or follow something up, maybe a previous sale or so forth, or we might want to educate. And then I show them a demo on how email marketing works. So not only the design of the e-newsletter, but how the actual sort of marketing platform works itself. So we have a look at that through Campaign Monitor. It's a little bit different to MailChimp, but it shows how to design the e-newsletter online, and also all the behind-the-scenes elements of it. And then the second exercise the students do is that they sign up for a free email marketing account on MailChimp. Then they start designing an e-newsletter. So they decide on, if they want to, basically educate them or share some news or share a story. But in doing so, they need to make sure that they can integrate the news pieces that they wrote earlier in the lesson. So a piece of good news, bad news, routine news, and persuasive news. So they bring that content forward, they choose the purpose of their e-newsletter and the design, and they start integrating that written content along with images that they can source from some of the free image platforms such as Unsplash that we have a look at. And look, that's it really. They do end the lesson being very sort of hands-on, and it opens up an opportunity to be engaged with the students one-on-one then, because the majority of the class is sort of shared and open discussion. So some of the outcomes here is that we want them to understand business writing styles, the application of particular business writing skills, understand various digital communication platforms, specifically the e-newsletter in this context, and practice the design and creation of an e-newsletter. So anyway, so that's my format. You may have some other advice or some input to that structure. The references I will change to Harvard referencing, because I've just backed in the links at the moment, but I'll make sure that I edit those. All right, thanks everybody. I'll stop recording.